We're all just swimming in information constantly, aren't we? And with that comes this pressure, this feeling that we should always be growing, improving, moving forward. But honestly, have you ever felt just, well, completely overwhelmed by the whole idea of self-improvement? Like, where do you even start? And how do you actually keep it going without, burning out or feeling like it's just another thing on the list?
Yeah, that feeling is incredibly common. It's easy to get lost in the noise.
Exactly. So today we're going to take a deep dive into a really insightful perspective on this exact challenge. We're drawing from the daily practice of extraordinary self-improvement. It's a source that offers, well, not just motivation, but a genuinely clear, actionable path. Yeah.
Moves beyond just the why and gets into the how.
Right. Our mission here is to unpack the really profound impact of continuous daily self-improvement, not just as some abstract idea, but in really tangible ways that affect your whole life. We want to pull out those core nuggets that show how tiny, consistent choices can lead to, well, frankly, exponential growth.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this main idea from the source. We often look at success, right? Like a big promotion, a sudden breakthrough.
Yeah, those big visible moments.
Exactly. And we think that's where the magic is. We're sort of trained to look for those big wins. But this source makes a really compelling case that true sustainable success, it doesn't come from those one-off triumphs.
No. It suggests it's something much more sustainable.
Yes. It's about consistent incremental progress, showing up every day, making those small, often unnoticed choices. It really pushes back against that idea that only huge, sudden changes count for anything.
It does. And we often get stuck thinking linearly, don't we? Put an X amount of effort, get X amount of result back.
Right. Simple cause and effect.
But what's really fascinating here is how this source emphasizes the exponential effect. It's like compound interest, but for your personal efforts. People get compounded in finance, right? But applying it to daily habits, daily choices, that's where things really take off.
Okay, so explain that a bit more. How does a tiny choice become exponential?
Well, think about it. That extra 5 minutes of focused work, or choosing water over soda, or reading one article, on day one it feels like nothing, insignificant. But these tiny decisions, repeated daily, don't just add up. They multiply, they compound over time. They can fundamentally change your trajectory in ways that are invisible at first, but absolutely transformational over, say, 5 years.
That's such a powerful way to reframe it. It makes self-improvement feel less like, I don't know, climbing Everest tomorrow,
Right.
and more like just taking one steady step after another, knowing each step actually makes the next step slightly easier or more impactful. It's a multiplier.
Exactly. Each step builds on the last, creating momentum.
Okay, so if it's all about this consistent incremental progress, where do we actually focus these daily choices? Because improve yourself daily is still pretty broad. The source gives us 10 specific areas for daily enhancement, which feels like a really helpful framework. It covers like the whole spectrum of a purposeful life.
It's a really robust framework. And I think it's powerful because it acknowledges how interconnected everything is. If you neglect your health, it's going to impact your focus, probably your relationships too.
Sure, it all bleeds together.
Exactly. So by intentionally touching on all 10 areas, even in tiny ways, you build this solid foundation. It supports that overall well-being and the exponential progress we talked about. It helps avoid that burnout you get from obsessing over just one thing, like only work or only fitness.
Right, keeps things balanced. Okay, let's dive into these 10 areas then. What are they?
All right, first up is mindset, which makes sense. It's kind of the bedrock for everything else.
Okay, mindset. So how do you work on that daily? Beyond just thinking positive, what are the small shifts?
Well, the source pushes beyond just generic positivity. It suggests daily mindset work is also about managing your expectations. A tiny daily act here could be spending just 1 minute visualizing not just the goal, but the feeling of achieving it, anchoring that positive emotion.
Interesting. So connecting to the feeling.
Yes. It's not just wishful thinking. It's almost like a neurological trick. It primes your brain for action, builds a bit of internal momentum. It helps you expect success rather than just hope for it.
I can see how consciously doing that, even for a minute, could subtly shift things, building that internal narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, so after tuning the mindset, where does the source go next?
Next is skills, because, good intentions need capability to back them up.
Right. So how does this daily incremental approach apply to getting better at something? Is it just practicing?
It's a specific kind of practice. Think about a musician just running scales for 10 minutes or a writer maybe free writing for 5. The source emphasizes deliberate practice, even in that small window. So it's not just going through the motions, it's consciously picking one tiny aspect of the skill you want to improve, really focusing on refining just that, and maybe reflecting for a moment after.
Ah, okay, so hyper-focus on one small element.
Exactly. That daily focused engagement keeps the skill sharp, stops you getting rusty, and builds mastery bit by bit. It's quality over sheer quantity of time.
That makes a lot more sense than just vaguely practicing. It's precise. Okay, and moving on to another fundamental, health. We all know the big stuff, Jim. Diets can feel overwhelming. So what are the micro decisions for health, physical and mental, that the source says really add up?
Absolutely. This is where the power of small choices really shines. It could be deciding to take the stairs instead of the elevator.
Simple stuff.
Really simple. Opting for water instead of that sugary drink. Taking just 5 minutes for some deep breaths or a quick meditation to clear your head. What the source highlights here is that these micro choices build your sense of autonomy and self-belief.
How so?
Every time you make a conscious, healthy choice, however small, you're basically telling yourself, I can control this. I have agency over my well-being. So they're not just physically beneficial, they're like these tiny, daily affirmations of your own power. That feeling compounds.
Huh. I hadn't thought about the psychological win from just choosing the stairs. It's like training your decision-making muscle. Okay, that leads nicely into another crucial area, relationships. We know they're important, but how do daily acts fit in? How do little things build stronger bonds?
The source uses a great metaphor. Deposits in your emotional bank account.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah. So a quick, sincere text message to a friend, just to check in, really listening, like really listening without interrupting when someone's talking.
Which is harder than it sounds sometimes.
It really is. Or just genuinely expressing appreciation to a partner or family member. These aren't just niceties. They're consistent, small investments. They build trust, intimacy, goodwill. So when challenges inevitably pop up in the relationship, you've got this deep reservoir to draw from. It makes the bond much more resilient.
That emotional bank account really sticks.
Okay.
Now, in this crazy, distracted world we live in, focus feels like a superpower. What daily practices does the source suggest to sharpen concentration and prioritize better?
This is a big one. It could be something like dedicating the very first 30 minutes of your workday, no distractions, to your absolute most important task.
Time blocking, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. Or even just actively turning off phone notifications for a set hour. But the unique angle here from the source is that it's less about raw willpower and more about environmental design.
Environmental design, how does that work?
It means subtly changing your surroundings or your routine to make focus the path of least resistance. So maybe you put your phone in another room during work blocks or use an app to block distracting websites. You're engineering your environment so you don't have to fight temptation quite so hard. Over time, these small tweaks build a serious capacity for deep work, almost without you noticing the effort.
So architecting your space and routine, not just gritting your teeth. Clever. All right, next up, habits, which the source basically says are the engine of this whole daily improvement thing. But habits are notoriously hard to build. What's the insight here for making good habits actually stick?
Habits really are the bedrock. They put so much on autopilot. The key insight from the source is to make the starting of the habit ridiculously small.
Ridiculously small.
Like almost laughably small. If you want the habit of running, the initial habit isn't run a mile. It's just put on your running shoes.
That's it.
That's it. If you want to write, the habit is open the document. If you want to meditate, it's sit on the cushion for 1 minute. You lower the friction to basically zero. It feels silly not to do it. What matters is the consistency of starting. That's what builds the neural pathway. The duration or intensity can come later, naturally. Once these tiny habits lock in, they create ripples across everything else.
That's really counterintuitive. Focus only on starting, not finishing. It lowers the bar so much.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Knowledge. We're bombarded with info, but how does seeking out a little new knowledge daily actually help in a meaningful way?
This could be reading one relevant article in your field, watching a short educational video, or even just asking a thoughtful question to someone you can learn from. The source frames this as mental stretching.
Mental stretching.
Yeah, it's less about cramming facts and more about consistently exposing yourself to new ideas, things that might challenge how you already think. This regular, gentle intellectual workout keeps you adaptable, improves critical thinking, and stops you from getting stuck in intellectual ruts. You're always evolving your understanding.
I like that frame. Mental stretching makes learning feel more active and less passive. Next, resilience. Life throws curveballs, big and small. How can small daily actions build our ability to bounce back, not just when disaster strikes, but every day?
Right? Resilience isn't just about surviving big hits. It's about adapting and growing from everyday friction. The source talks about building micro-resilience muscles. This means consciously reframing minor daily setbacks like a delayed train, a small mistake at work, a slightly awkward conversation. Instead of seeing it as a failure or annoyance, you practice seeing it as a neutral event. And then crucially, you look for one tiny lesson or adjustment. You practice self-compassion in those small moments, daily. These consistent, conscious acts train your brain to pivot quickly from problem to solution, building this inherent toughness.
So using tiny frustrations as actual training exercises for resilience, that's a powerful shift, instead of just letting them wash over you. All right, number 9, creativity. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative, but the source argues it's a daily muscle. How do you work that out each day?
Yeah, it really demystifies creativity. It doesn't mean painting a masterpiece daily. It could be as simple as brainstorming alternative ways to solve a mundane problem you face, doodling ideas in a notebook, trying a new route on your commute just to see things differently.
Small things again.
Tiny things. Experimenting with a recipe. The source calls it feeding your inner artist. It's about dedicating maybe just 5 or 10 minutes to some kind of nonlinear exploratory activity, letting your mind wander and make new connections. This keeps your imaginative spark alive, so when you do need a bigger creative idea, your mind is primed and ready.
So it's about consistent input, not waiting for lightning to strike. Makes sense. And finally, the 10th area, contribution. What does that mean in this daily context? Making a small contribution to others or the world. How does that fit into self-improvement?
This really broadens the focus beautifully. A daily contribution could be offering genuine help to a colleague without being asked, sharing something useful you learned with a friend.
Or even just making someone smile.
Absolutely. Simple human connection. The source highlights that these aren't just nice things to do for others, they act as powerful purpose amplifiers for you. By consistently doing small things that extend beyond your own immediate needs, you foster this sense of interconnectedness, of meaning. These small acts create positive ripples outwards, yes, but they also bounce back and reinforce your own sense of purpose, which makes your whole growth journey feel more meaningful and sustainable.
That really ties it all together. It's not just navel-gazing self-improvement, it connects outwards. Okay, this leads us to the ultimate outcome the source talks about. How all this consistent incremental progress leads to an extraordinary life. That feels like the big promise here. It argues that doing this across these 10 areas is what builds that truly purposeful life. And crucially, it's not about achieving some state of perfection, which is impossible anyway.
And totally paralyzing as a goal.
Exactly. But it's about being constantly in motion, moving towards something that feels meaningful to you.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, this stops being just self-help in a narrow sense. It becomes about agency. It's about realizing your potential. The daily practice unlocks this idea that your growth isn't really limited by external stuff nearly as much as it's limited by your own daily commitment to these internal processes.
Yeah, it puts the power back in your hands.
It really does. It frames self-betterment not as this burden or chore, but as this incredible gift. A gift to yourself. Obviously, you become more capable, more resilient, happier, but also through becoming that enriched version of yourself, it's a gift to the world too. You have more to offer, more wisdom, more capacity to make a positive difference. It really positions this ongoing daily journey as the actual key to an extraordinary existence, not just settling for an ordinary one.
That idea of unlocking limitless potential just through these consistent daily micro choices, that's incredibly empowering, isn't it? It suggests the ceiling on what you can achieve or become isn't fixed. It's determined by your willingness to engage in this daily practice, embracing growth as just the normal state of being, not some special event.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this deep dive up. The core takeaway seems crystal clear. Real self-improvement isn't about massive, infrequent leaps. It's a continuous daily journey. It's about focusing on those 10 key areas we walked through: mindset, skills, health, relationships, focus, habits, knowledge, resilience, creativity, and contribution. And understanding that small, consistent, deliberate choices in these areas don't just add up, they compound. They lead to exponential growth and ultimately a life that feels genuinely purposeful.
That's the essence of it.
And what this framework gives you, the listener, is a clear roadmap. It's a way to approach self improvement without getting bogged down or overwhelmed.
Mm.
It shifts your focus from these huge, maybe intimidating goals down to manageable daily actions. Things you can literally start doing tomorrow morning. It really shows you the immense power hidden in those seemingly small, everyday decisions.
Yeah, makes it accessible.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you think about these 10 areas: mindset, skills, health, relationships, focus, habits, knowledge, resilience, creativity, contribution. Just consider this. Which one of those areas, just one, starting tomorrow, could benefit the most from one small, consistent daily choice from you? Not a massive life overhaul, just one tiny, deliberate shift. And then think, how might that single tiny step ripple outwards? How could it start to create something truly extraordinary in your life over time? Something to think about. Let that guide your day. We'll catch you next time on the Deep Dive.